Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com to watch Inside the Zone with Blake Sebring, the beat writer of the Comets for the News Sentinel. And Blake, I don't know where the season went, but we've only got 15 games left. I say we're not playing, but there are 15 games left for the Comets this ECHL season. It's winding down. It's time to watch the scoreboards as far as the standings go, because right now, realistically, there are 4 teams battling for those final 2 playoff spots, Comets included.
Well, and let's face it, they can't afford another weekend like they just went through. They've lost 4 of the last 5, and I don't know if they can have another stretch like that the rest of the way and still make the playoffs.
Talking a little bit about this past weekend, they go up to Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo, obviously a very good team this year, back-to-back 4-3 losses. That doesn't necessarily worry me as much as the health of this team, because we were talking off camera. This is a Comets team that the one thing you could say is throughout the season, they're really healthy. They're really healthy. They haven't been bitten by the injury bug.
If they missed anybody, they lost one guy usually. That was it.
They're getting bit by some nagging injuries. Where are they injury-wise? Because you got Matt Carter on the shelf. Hopefully Kaylee Schrock, who missed a game, will be back with the shoulder. And then the Wallets, kind of question marks at this point. Where are they health-wise? Because they're finally, dinged up.
Well, and, yeah, Dean Ouellette took a nasty concussion. It looks like a concussion yesterday. I'm not a doctor, but they said he had a head injury.
Like you play one on the internet.
Yeah, I was and I'm not sure what else it could be, but they're not saying specifics right now. This is the time of year where you will not hear specifics on the injuries. Christian Ouellette had a leg something, and he's supposed to come back Friday. Schrocky, they hope to have him back Friday with his shoulder. And they're going to need him. They were down to 7 forwards in the third period on Sunday because of the injuries and what happened. And they took 20 guys with them up there for the weekend.
And, Martini kind of had to play out of position, correct? And some other guys
he's really banged up, too.
And Carter's got a groin as well?
Carter's got a groin. Dale has a groin. And I don't know that they're counting on Dale coming back or not. They'd love to have him back, and they're hoping. But I'm not sure they can count on him at this point because it's a tear.
Yeah, because he came back a little earlier than we had expected,
right,
and then re-aggravated it in a Wednesday game a couple of weeks ago.
Right, and so, at this point, I don't think you can count on him. It's not a knock on Jason in any way because he's trying to play through it, but I don't know if you can count on that at this point.
Let's go through the standings real quick. Wheeling 7th right now, 64 points. Comets 8th, 63. Florida 9th, 63, so essentially tied. And then Evansville 10th with 62. Elmira's 11th with 52, so they're pretty much out, barring a miracle. As far as those final 2 playoff spots go, you wrote in an article the Comets have not missed back-to-back playoffs since 74-75. So you're talking...
You weren't even born then.
I know. I was 5 years away from being born. So 40 years in the ballpark. Do you see this as a team that can rally and get themselves in the playoffs?
Oh, sure. With everything they've been through this year, who'd ever thought they'd be this close? A week ago, they were in 6th place. They just had a bad stretch. They had fought their way to, they were within shot of having home ice advantage for the first round. It doesn't look likely, but it is possible. They have 10 out of 15 at home. If they could ever figure out how to win at home and say win 8 of them, they might even get back up 5th, 6th. Maybe even a shot at 4th. There is a possibility. It's not done yet.
Stanford ratings. Those necessarily, college basketball at this time we talk about RPI.
Mm-hmm.
Each sport seems to have their own way of trying to quantify things in terms of numbers to give you a better idea than just the standings, goals against, things like that. How much stock do you put in those? How do you feel like those are reflective of what's actually happening on the ice? Because right now, the Comets are 13th in those standings. They're behind Wheeling, Florida, Evansville. They're behind the teams, some of those teams that they're actually ahead of in the standings.
And they actually went up 3 spots this week, even though they lost both games, because the teams around them fell apart in their schedule. So, and the Comets played a really, good Kalamazoo team on the road, so they got the benefit of that. I'll tell you what, I try not to think a lot about those because I trust Joe. Joe, he told me Florida State was going to win the national title 2 months before it happened.
Oh, okay.
He's on top of it, and his formula does work.
So you do put some stock into it.
Sure.
But if you're the Comets, you're like, man, they're totally underrating us at this point. Do they even care about that stuff?
I don't think they care about it.
Okay.
And if they are underrated, it's like, well, you guys haven't won more than 2 games in a row all year. I mean, I don't know if they've won 3 games in a row. I know they haven't done it at home. I mean, it's like, I don't think they're even worried about that. I think it's a non-factor for them.
One thing they haven't worried about until more recently, they did at the beginning of the season, then goaltending was better, then not so much recently, the past couple of weeks, is the goaltending position. Meisner with a rare, his first road loss. He's now 9-1 on the road up in Kalamazoo. And then Mac also with a loss on Sunday. What did you see from, I know you went up there on Saturday, what did you see from the goaltending position that maybe has you a little concerned heading into the final 15 days?
I've been really concerned with the goaltending anyway, especially at home. I did a story for tomorrow where I tracked what the road and home numbers are for everybody, not just the goalies. But the goalies are giving up a goal and a third or a fourth, 1.4 goals per game more at home than on the road. And their save percentage goes from like 910 on the road to like 880 something at home. I mean, it's really noticeable. And the difference was really fascinating to me is they're only giving up 1 more shot per game at home than they are on the road.
So they're just not making as many saves.
It's just not working that way. Yeah. And they're scoring the same at home as they are on the road. Their power play is awful at home because they won't shoot, they won't get their rebounds and whatever, but they're scoring almost the exact same on the road as they are at home. They're giving up 3.35 at home, and I think they're giving up, it's 2.6 on the road.
Big weekend this weekend. I don't think it can be overstated. They've got Florida coming in. One of the teams they're battling for those final playoff spots. They've actually had pretty good success against Florida this season. They're 3-2, and that includes 3 games at Florida recently. But Florida is also playing some bad hockey right now. They're 1-5-2 in their last 8. How much of a make some road in the standings weekend is this for the Komets when they play Florida on Friday and then again on Saturday?
You know what? I don't think they can look at it that way.
Really?
I really don't. I think they have to go. They got to go game by game. I mean, they've started the week horribly. We've talked about that for years here. How they start the week at home and it's absolutely terrible. They can't afford that this time. They have to play well Friday night and they have to win Friday night. And if you get through that, then you can look at Saturday. And for goodness sakes, don't look ahead to Toledo on Sunday. Just don't. I mean, I know Toledo's awful this year. They're in last place. That's a great way to get your butt kicked, And they have proven again and again they cannot do that.
Well, that's, you're playing 2 straight nights and then for a third night going on the road. I know it's Toledo and I know they're bad, but you're right. You can't overlook it. One of the interesting stories I think that you wrote this week was about the Komets ownership. And there were some rumors maybe the team would be up for sale at some point in the near future, I guess I should say.
Well, the rumor was that there was a prospective owner and a prospective coach in the building, which turned out not to be true because nobody had actually talked to the owners about it or notified them that this person was even interested or anything.
So going forward, it's kind of like an all about nothing type of scenario. And Stephen Franke, who you spoke with, said nothing to it, right?
Right. Well, and I kind of approached it from a different angle. Once they said there's nothing to it, it's like there's nothing there to write about. But it's like, okay, Stephen is 65. What are your plans? How do you look at this in the long term? And Steve says, I don't want to sell. And if I do ever sell, I hope to do it like Ted Parfit did it in Kalamazoo, where he had somebody buy into the team and was able to work with him for 2 years. And then when Ted passed away, the other guy bought out the team and now is a full owner. And he's been there for 10 years now. So he would really like to find a transition point eventually, and it might be 6, 7, 8 years from now. Nobody knows. If somebody gives them a $10 million offer, I'm sure they really would consider it.
That was my next question is, they're more looking forward to the future. It's hard to keep something like that in the family. Frankies have done obviously a great job with the franchise.
24 years. Right? I think it's 10 years longer than any other minor league franchise right now.
So they've kept it in the family, but like you said, Steven's 65, he's the majority owner. The other 4 brothers also involved, so you do have to have an eye on the future to a certain degree.
Well, and I think part of it too is their children are younger, and I don't think they have as much interest now in coming in and following them either. So there's that as well. And I think we've all none of us are getting any younger.
Really? I'm like Benjamin Button.
And I look at owning the Komets as like being president. It's a job that ages you,
Yeah.
It ages you 10 years for every 3, It's a very high pressure job. And I think that's a factor as well, is like how much longer do they want to keep putting this kind of energy and commitment and stress into it? And they still do. I give them credit for that.
Final topic I want to touch on today, Thursday, the trade deadline. We know the Komets have, really in the last 2 months have been very active. We could talk about whether they're going to get a player for Utah, whether they're going to get a player from Florida, or Orlando, I should say, anytime in the future. I don't know. Do those deals have to get done by Thursday?
No, not necessarily.
So what's the situation heading into the trade deadline if you're the Komets? I imagine, I heard an interview with Gary Graham, they're going to be active. Everyone's probably going to be active, at least looking.
I think everyone wants to be active. I don't know that everyone can be active.
Okay. Because what do they have left at this point? They've traded away a lot of good pieces.
Right. And if you do trade a bigger name player, what do you replace them with? You're going to have to go college or juniors and find some kids and try that way. Because you're almost at the point, I know everybody wants to see him get a stay-at-home defenseman, and they'd like to get another scoring forward or a defenseman that can do it all, but that's what everybody's looking for. Mm-hmm. That's what every team is looking for right now. And that's pie in the sky almost, because if you were going to make that deal, you would have made it right now. Jordan Southorns do not just sit out there waiting, and that was
true.
They
get called up to the AHL too.
Right, yeah. They get called up to the AHL, exactly. And you can't, Jordan Southorn got called up and didn't even dress. What can the Komets do about it? Nothing. That's the way it works, I'd love to see him trade for a more veteran goalie. But I don't know that there's anybody out there that's available.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody wants to trade away little to get a lot, and everybody wants to do that. Very rarely do you have a trade like you had with Southorn for Vasquez that works out for both teams. You got Carter and Ouellette, who worked out well for the Komets, for Pakaluk and I can't remember who. There's been so many trades this year.
I'm not going to say Tizzolino's name, but people are looking for that.
I'm sorry, you're right.
People are looking for that kind of guy in a certain sense, are they not? The big 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guy in the back?
There's not going to find that.
Yeah.
That person's not there. The Komets have always been pretty good at making these trades. They got Rod Aldoff that one year, and he was great in the playoffs. They've done pretty good finding guys like that. Justin Hodgman came out of juniors.
They got Sierczynski before to come back in.
They got Sierczynski to come back in.
Out of retirement.
I don't know what can happen now. It's a little different when you're dealing with a 22-team league too.
All right. Yeah.
I get you. I'm guessing they won't make another deal with Orlando.
I would say probably
you can
not.
trust that one.
Or Utah. Utah's probably not on their favorites list. Not first call.
And I'm kind of surprised the league hasn't stepped in.
Well, we'll see if they do.
It doesn't make the league look very good.
It doesn't
make it look very professional.
It does not when you can trade the league's leading goal scorer and get nothing, but that's just my opinion and the opinion of every Komets fan everywhere.
Yeah. Especially when the guy that you had already identified as the other guy you wanted, and then he goes to Europe, and you don't tell him anything about, but you were going to get traded to Fort Wayne, A
little miscommunication there.
Just a tad.
Slightly. I also left out a sentence in a contract that was probably pretty important.
Yeah.
That'll do it for Inside the Zone with Blake Sebring. We'll be back Monday, hopefully talking about 3 wins as they take on Florida, and as we mentioned, in 2 key games, and then travel to Toledo on Sunday. But for Blake, I'm Glenn. We'll see you next Monday.